out a message today. Problem is, when you leave for a couple weeks and come back, then things are very slow getting back. Yeah, and then there was another week. Sorry, I was gone for the 3 weeks, and then the other week, which is a 4 weeks, right? So now sometimes you got to call everyone up and start bringing them back. Yeah, he's probably gone. Is the mosque still there?
They probably don't even want to look at the message. They were like, I don't want to look at the phone because there will be a message. So
Maybe.
they'll excuse it. I didn't see it.
All right. Well, we can start. All right. So we'll start from chapter 11, verse 94. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويا قوم اعملوا على مكانتكم إني عامل سوف تعلمون من يأتيه عذاب يخزيه ومن هو كاذب وارتقبوا إني معكم رقيب. And O my people, act as best you can. I too am acting. You will soon know on whom lights a punishment or comes a punishment that will disgrace him, and who it is that is a liar. And wait, surely I wait with you. So here in the commentary it states, the words act as best you can, I too am acting, mean that they should go on working according to their own lights and plans, and he could work as guided by his faith. The results would show who is working in accordance with God's will and who is seeking to defy and frustrate his purpose. In fact, prophets of God always ask their people to leave the matter to God and wait for his decision, but their opponents always seek to take the matter into their own hands. The result invariably is that their efforts to destroy the prophet and his followers prove futile, and they themselves are destroyed. So here again, we're continuing on with the story of Hazrat Shu'aib alayhi salam, and the response that he provides to his people when they declare that he is false and also make indications that they wish to persecute him is, "O my people, act best as you can. As best as you can, I too am acting." So here, the Prophet gives us a very enlightened standard by which two groups can be compared. He says to them that you say I am false, and I claim that your doctrines are false. So instead of trying to abuse each other, and instead of you persecuting us, or us perhaps in your mind wanting to persecute you, let's compete with one another in good deeds. Because all of our teachings, all the teachings of the Prophet, tell people about how to establish justice and how to be righteous. So if there is to be a competition, then let's compete in being better people. This will be the standard. So whether you're better than us or we are better than you, in this way, the competition is a wholesome competition. So you say that your doctrines and your actions are better. We say that our doctrines and our actions are better. So let's see who's actually better, who serves Allah most, who serves humanity the most, who is making more progress, in morality and spirituality. So this is the way that we should act in the best way, right? So this is a very beautiful teaching, and it tells us, that prophets don't come to just have debates or try and destroy people or call down the punishment of Allah. What they want is that everyone should be acting in the best way possible. You will soon know on whom lights a punishment that will disgrace him, and who it is that is a liar. So here it's very clear. We'll find out who's the liar through this competition. That group that says that it's on the right path, but then does nothing to increase in morality or spirituality, versus that group that actually does. It'll be very clear on whom the punishment of Allah descends, and who then, through that clear demonstration of divine anger, is a liar and who is truthful. And wait, surely I wait with you. But such a thing doesn't happen immediately. So we need to wait. We need to persevere. We need to be patient in our acts. And then Allah, when the time is right, will demonstrate through His hand who is truthful and who is false. So this is a universal standard that we should always try and compete with one another, whether amongst Muslims or even between us and non-Muslims. We should always compete with one another in doing good actions. And we should see who has the best teachings and the best actions, right? Next verse. Verse 95. وَلَمَّا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا نَجَّيْنَا شُعَيْبًا وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ بِرَحْمَةٍ مِّنَّا وَأَخَذَتِ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا الصَّيْحَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دِيَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. And when our command came, we saved Shu'aib and those who had believed with him by our special mercy, and chastisement, punishment, seized those who had done wrong, so that they lay prostrate in their houses. Here in the 5-volume commentary it states, Hazrat Shu'aib lived in a territory where earthquakes were frequent. So it is quite possible that, as the words apparently show, his people should have been visited with an earthquake. But the word sayha is typically what is used here. A sayha, to denote the punishment, may also mean any other punishment. And the words they lay prostrate in their homes may have been used in a figurative sense, meaning that their power was broken by some dreadful visitation, and they met with disgrace and humiliation as if thrown into the dust. Another interpretation. So when our command came, we saved Shu'aib and those who had believed with him by our special mercy. So when Allah causes, or when the punishment of Allah comes, it descends upon the entire group, but by the special mercy of Allah, He saves the believers, right? So the sunnah of the Prophet, of course, is to migrate. This is also what we see in other prophets. So before the punishment comes, typically Allah informs the Prophet that now you should leave this persecution, you should leave this area, and then also the believers also follow. But there are certain cases, perhaps, where the Prophet is not permitted to leave, or he can't leave, or certain believers can't leave. So in such a situation where Allah sees the sincerity, or He knows the situation, then even if they don't migrate, or even if the believers remain there, through the special mercy of Allah, they are protected from the punishments that come. So this protection of Allah is something that we see across the board. Even in, I remember there was a huge earthquake in Pakistan a few years ago, and I think there were tens of thousands of people that died. And there were certain Ahmadis in that area as well. And the incredible thing was the houses of the Ahmadis weren't destroyed, right? So even, I remember in one of the sermons, one of the people from Pakistan, he was there, he was telling us, he said that there was an entire neighborhood that was like flattened, and the only house that remained was the Ahmadi house there. So, there's...
they still deny the promised Messiah?
So this is the thing, even during the time of the promised Messiah, when the plague struck, so thousands of people were dying, and then the Ahmadis were the ones that by and large were protected, right? So this is a sunnah of Allah, that when the command comes for punishment, then He makes the protection of the believers a special sign of His mercy, right? So this is what here also is being expressed. And chastisement seized those who had done wrong. So here, allazina zalamu, those people that were persecuting the Prophet. So here Allah also states that the worldly punishments come when the disbelievers start acting in a way that goes against even basic morality. Allah doesn't punish in this world just for false beliefs. The punishment that comes in this world is due to incorrect actions and persecution, and zulam, which is wrong that exceeds the limit, so that they lay prostrate in their homes. So there are many interpretations of this final section as well. They lay prostrate in their homes. One of them we've heard in the 5-volume commentary, that it could be in the figurative sense, that they lay prostrate in their homes in the sense that they had no more power left, or they had no more pride left. A prideful person walks with their head held high, whereas a humble person, he may be figuratively with his face on the floor. So they lay prostrate in their houses could be figurative, or it could also be literal. It could be that the punishment came at such a time when they were sleeping in their beds. So they were in their homes, they were prostrate, they were defenseless, and in their state of being defenseless, the punishment came. So this is also another interpretation that is valid. 1196. كأن لم يغنوا فيها على بعدا لمدين كما بعدت ثمود. As though they had never dwelt therein, behold, how Midian was cut off, even as Thamud had been cut off. So here, again, Allah is closing out this ruku, and the final verse in this ruku, or we can say the final verse in this section, which we have designated as the end of the ruku, as though they had never dwelt therein. So here, Allah states that there are certain punishments that come upon a people that leaves still certain signs of that dwelling behind as a sign for other people. And sometimes Allah completely wipes out all signs of that people, and no one can find them afterwards as well, right? So here, as though they had never dwelt therein, one of the interpretations could be this, that He completely wiped them out, right? Or number two is that some aspect of the dwelling remained, but all signs of their power and their arrogance, all of that was wiped out. So behold how Midian was cut off, even as Thamud had been cut off. So here, Allah states that there is a continuity between the prophets and between the stories of the prophets and the pueblos, the people, the nations that rejected the prophets. So it's a universal law that is in operation here. Those groups, nations that don't accept their prophets and they persecute them, they follow the same patterns. So they'll make the same sort of accusations, they'll act in the same way, and then in the same way, they're also punished by Allah. So Midian and Thamud were two groups or nations that were one after another. There's a chronology that is being mentioned here, and this is the order. So this is why they have been mentioned in this order as well. Any questions?
On the verse 94, it's interesting because when I was watching that one faith, one God, three different faiths, they were mentioning this. They had taken there was a pastor, a rabbi, and an imam.
Okay.
Right? And they were all invited to the church to talk about their faiths.
Yeah.
And then they had a group of different individuals, people from different backgrounds, right? So there was this one Palestinian girl and this one Israeli girl. And the Palestinian girl was saying, that she has, this is like an interfaith kind of thing.
Okay.
Right? Where they have to, like, what you want to do here, you talk about some person's religion, whatever. So she was saying, you know what? I see that what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians, it hurts me. But all these protests, she's saying, it doesn't amount to nothing because there's no reason a solution. Instead of protesting, we should be, try to find a little solution where we can all be even. And then the Jewish girl was saying the same thing. And her and this Palestinian girl wind up becoming friends. So they want to, like, start changing things, as far as, like, no more protests. We know what they're doing. So what we're thinking about is you guys are taking human lives away for no reason, innocent people. So whatever the difference is, we could sit down, we could be, talk about it, because the three religions got along before. So it was pretty cool, man. I was watching. So
I mean,
when you read that verse, it reminded me what they were saying there.
If it was just a religious problem, then it could probably be resolved very quickly. The problem is not the religious aspect, specifically.
Right.
The problem more is the political ideology that's at play here, right? Whereas there are many Jewish groups that are against the occupation and against the persecution. But the group that is in power is the Zionist, that has a very, again, a type of Zionism that requires occupation and genocide, right, of the indigenous population there. So that's a type of political ideology that it's incompatible, with the teachings of the religions themselves. Yeah. So obviously there's extremist interpretations of all the religions, but by and large, if you read it with a reasonable sort of mind, none of the religions permit this sort of thing.
There was one kid that was visit Pakistan, and Jewish kid, and he was killed over it. And the father was there, and he was saying, he goes, I want an apology. I want an apology because my son was a missionary. He didn't shoot. And then there was a representative from Pakistan, and he was telling him, listen, what happened to your son? It's just people who take the teachings out of extreme, because it's not teaching you to do that, but they're interpreting another way.
Yeah.
So he started crying there. Oh man, it's like, it's hard when these innocent people die.
Yeah, unfortunately, people always use whatever they have to unjustly kind of justify what what their interests are. So whether that's through nationalism, whether that's through ethnicity, whether that's through religion, politics, people will always justify their desires, through some sort of means or framework or other. So unfortunately, when most people are Muslim in an area and someone wants to do something bad, they'll try and justify it through the religion, So if they're non-religious, then they'll justify it through other ways, like nationalism or, some other political ideology. But yeah, it's sad. Religion shouldn't lead to the deaths of people.
There's no way to change that.
Oh, let's see when Ahmadiyyat spreads, hopefully. All right, so next is Hadith. So we're reading this booklet, Hadices Seleccionados. Bueno, está en español. Vamos a leerlo en español. Capítulo 6. El Sagrado Corán. Hazrat Usman bin Affan, radiallahu an, afirma que el santo profeta sallallahu alayhi wasallam dijo, el mejor de vosotros es aquel que aprende el Corán y lo enseña a los demás. So here we find that the Holy Quran is, the base of what makes a person a good person in Islam, right? So now there are different types of hadiths where the Prophet ﷺ has stated in different situations to different people who is the best person, right? But this is one of the more common ones that we hear, that the best among you is the one who learns the Quran and then teaches it to others. So there's a duty here of not only to learn the Quran for ourselves, but then also serve others with it, right? So we should practice Islam personally, but then also serve others with the faith. So this is the teaching behind this, and the best way to serve others the faith is through the Quran, teaching the Quran, learning the Quran ourselves, not only teaching others how to read it, meaning the text or Arabic or the translation, but also telling them what the meanings are of it, and how to apply it in their lives. So everything that we should do, really, and what we do is all of our activities revolve, or all of our educational activities revolve around the Quran, right? So whether it's the khutbah, whether it's programs, all of it begins with the recitation of the Quran, and the topics all revolve around what the Quran is teaching us, right? So the Quran always should be the base. In another hadith in Tirmizi, Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu afirma que el santo profeta sallallahu alayhi wasallam dijo, la situación de aquel que no aprende ninguna parte del Corán es similar a una casa abandonada. So here also there's emphasis on learning, or that is to say, memorizing passages of the Holy Quran. Right? So we should always have passages memorize of the Holy Quran. It's always a good deed to practice those passages in our daily prayers or otherwise, and also continue to memorize different passages and learn or recite them in different prayers or in different parts of the day. And then to revise those passages as well, because if we don't revise, then you'll see that very quickly we begin to forget those passages, right?
I wrote out 3 new ones that I'm learning, and I'm just using them every day. Like my Fajr prayer, I'll say that one, the same one. Then for the other one, I'll say this one, and then it's just round the clock until I fully memorize it.
So that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, because right? Now you're gonna lose it. Yeah. And then I try to remember the ones that I already had learned. You know, like just say like maybe when I'm lying down in bed.
Yeah. Well, there's so many prayers during the day, right? Even if you revise one in each rakat, right? So then you have maybe over a dozen prayers that you can, or passages that you can revise every day, right? So
yeah, that's the only way. You got to just repeat it over.
Yeah, you know, and even the Hufaz, those people that have memorized the entire Quran, they have a schedule that every day they need to revise at least one part, right? So they're constantly revising so that they can hang on to the entire book.
It's right? Like the one kid over there at Jalsa, he got an award for memorizing.
Yeah, for memorizing the entire Quran. Yeah, it's always children because their memories are very strong at that point in their lives, right? And they can do the memorization daily. So typically I think they're like 10 to like 13 years old or something, right? So they spend a couple of years, they do the memorization, and then they go back to regular school, right? Yeah, there's a whole school in Canada for it, right? Every year, I think there's like maybe 5 to 10 graduates, right, of the children.
I saw on Netflix or something like that. They took like 5 different kids worldwide that were going up for a prize in memory on the Quran. And this is the youngest one kid. He knew it to the T, but he didn't win because he didn't know what it meant. He was just reciting it.
Oh, he was just reciting it.
He didn't know what he was saying. The other ones did.
Yeah.
So he didn't win because of that. And I was like, and so then since they were impressed with him, they will pay him school so he can go and learn what he's actually saying. So yeah, it's pretty moving, man. It's like, you know, they're just telling him, read this.
Yeah. Some of them know it like backwards and forwards, you know, that, okay, this chapter, you know, start from this verse, right? And they know it. Yeah. We had a Hafiz in our college, Jamia, and he was one of the better ones. He could tell you, like, this verse, where is it? And he would tell you, he'd be like, oh, it's in this chapter, like over here, you know. So he knew like where things were, and you know, back and forth. He could tell you where stuff was, and yeah, he had a really good memory. And
like you say, you don't have to practice it. It's like writing the Bible.
Yeah, but this is a blessing of Allah, you know, and there's so many other blessings associated with it. And you know, then especially for Ramadan, for doing the Taraweeh prayers, you need to have someone that has memorized lots of passages, right? Yeah. So then they always serve the communities during Ramadan, especially, right? They're good. Their pronunciation is typically very good. So then they're the ones that typically will be teaching the kids, you know. So the communities need the Hufaz, right? So, you know, let's see. Hopefully here, maybe one day we'll have a Hafiz, you know. All right, next to these is the last one in this section. This is from Sahih Muslim. Hazrat Zaid bin Arqam radiallahu anh relata, en una ocasión el santo profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam se dirigió a nosotros, glorificó a Allah, le alabó y luego nos exhortó y amonestó diciendo, oh gente, soy un ser humano. Es previsible que un día acuda a mí un mensajero de mi Señor y haya de abandonar este mundo. Dejo 2 cosas importantes con ustedes. El libro de Allah, que contiene la guía y la luz. Agarren firmemente pues el libro de Allah y permanecen en su entorno. De esta forma elevó nuestro interés y nos llenó de emoción respecto al libro de Allah. Luego dijo que también dejaré detrás a los miembros de mi casa. y los prevengo para que estén atentos ante Allah respecto a cómo traten a los miembros de mi familia. Entonces, here the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he stated that in his legacy we have two aspects. One is the book of Allah, right, which is preserved, maintained, remains with us, and that should always be the base. Then the second thing, according to this hadith, is the family of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So about this second portion, there's different interpretations. Some have given the opinion that the Prophet seems to have perhaps given a list of different things, and this is the one that the narrator remembered, the second of maybe many things, or maybe he had other instructions regarding the family, and that these two things were then put together, although it was a longer speech, right? But in any case, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam seems to have encouraged his members or encouraged the Muslims to take care of his family after him, right? Because this was also a sha'irullah. This was also one of the signs of Islam, or signs of Allah, his family, right? His wives were the mothers of the believers, right? According to the Quran. So he told his followers that, look, after my death, don't assume that my family will cease to have importance. My family, my wives, and others that are related to me, they will continue to have importance for the community. Number one, because Allah has declared in the Quran their virtues. And number two, these are the people, of course, that lived in very close proximity with the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were members of his household. They had access to him. And because of that, they also received many teachings from him. And they received a level of reformation that was seldom seen amongst others, So this is why he said that the members of my family will also play an important role amongst you. So don't treat them as if you would treat them anyone else. They have special qualities by virtue of having this access to me for such a long time, right? So, of course, this is part of Islam, and we have, even now, we have much respect and love for the family of the Holy Prophet ﷺ or his descendants. So his descendants typically go by the last name Sayyid. They'll say that we are Sayyid, meaning that we are of the descendants of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So if someone is a Sayyid, then just by virtue of that connection to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, we should have a certain love for that person, right? Now, that person personally may not be such a good Muslim, maybe, or he may have other deficiencies. We don't know. But if you have a good friend, or you had a good friend for many, many decades, and then sometime later his son comes up to you and says, I'm the son of such and such individual, automatically you'll have a love for that individual, just because you knew that person's father, right? Yeah. So this is the same thing here. Just because we have love for the Holy Prophet ﷺ, when someone comes to us and says that I am one of the sons or grandsons or descendants of that individual, then automatically we have love for that individual, even though he may have other things going on in his life, right? But we should have that initial spark of love.
So true. But when I first got hired in the post office in West New York, Jersey, the first guy who trained me was a guy named Sammy Monserrati, a Puerto Rican guy. But he lived his life in the States. So he's the one who trained me. He was like very, very disciplined and everything. And then we bonded together while we were there. Then he transferred to Florida, and I transferred over here. We haven't heard from each other in a long time. And then my son got hired to work in a post office now in Florida. And then someone told me, hey, listen, Sammy works he's the one in charge of training those people. So I told Brian, I said, Brian, when you go over there, if the guy's name is Sammy Monserrati, tell him that you're Diaz's son. And when he went over there, he told me, I'm looking for a guy named Sammy Monserrati. And the guy came on, he goes, yeah, that's me. What's your name? He goes, I'm Diaz's son. Oh, man, come over here. Come over here. He took a picture and sent it to me. It's true what you're saying, It's like, we haven't seen each other for years. But the minute you say, oh, this is Diaz's son, it's like it's like treat him like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And I started laughing. He sent me a picture. I said, look, I took a picture of Sammy. I said, oh, you ever know what you just said,
Yeah, so this is a natural reaction, right? Yeah. And of course, this is also this is why the promised Messiah والسلام, also expressed his love for the Sayyid clan or group, So love for the family of the Holy Prophet ﷺ is also part of our faith, right? It's not that we take them as divine figures or even as leaders, but due to our connection with the Holy Prophet ﷺ, this is a natural consequence of it. Love for the descendants follows our love for the Holy Prophet ﷺ, right?
I have a question. Did Aisha and Ali go to battle against each other?
Yes, they did.
Over what?
So after the murder of Hazrat Usman, radiallahu anh, there was a lot of turmoil in the Muslims at that time. So there were people that wanted to bring Usman's killers to justice first, but Hazrat Ali realized, and he was correct, that justice cannot be served until the underlying structure of society is maintained. So at that time, there was so much disorder that he said, look, first we have to put an end to the disorder. We have to have rule of law once again. And once we have that rule of law, then we can bring these killers to justice. But we can't do it before that. So unfortunately, due to, many different situations, there were a lot of hypocrites at that time, also stoking the fires and doing things like that. Right. So Hazrat Aisha, unfortunately, she took this position that we need to first bring the killers to justice. So she and some of the hypocrites gathered around her as well. And this led to a confrontation between the army of Hazrat Ali and people that had gathered around Hazrat Aisha. And it is stated that they didn't want to fight. For many days, there was no fighting even.
He was not gonna hurt her.
Yeah, there was no fighting even between the groups. But then, seeing that perhaps a resolution was coming, the hypocrites from both sides started to attack each other's group. And that led to that confrontation. So this entire sad... no, it wasn't something that it wanted. And Hazrat Ali, of course, he treated her with utmost respect, even after she lost the battle. And she always was very regretful. She always regretted having gone to battle against him, right? So, yeah, they were still, they were yeah, so it was Hazrat Aisha, who was the wife of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and Hazrat Ali, who was the son-in-law of the Prophet ﷺ. So it was the same family, right? So, but unfortunately, this was something that was also decreed to happen, you can say. And it also teaches us certain lessons about unity, right? But yes, this was known as Jang-e-Jamal, the Battle of the Camel, you could say. Yeah, so there's I'm not sure if it's part of the 3-year schedule, but
that should be in the one that I bought over there, the 3-volume Seal of the Prophet.
It's not in there.
It won't be there?
No, that only addresses the life of the Prophet ﷺ himself, not events that happened afterwards.
Okay, yeah,
right?
That was right.
So about the history of the 4 Khulafa, there are some books in the Jamaat, but this particular issue of the differences that started amongst the Muslims after the Holy Prophet ﷺ, culminating in the murder of Hazrat Ali and the end of the era of the Khilafat-e-Rashida, right? How and why did this happen? Hazrat Muslim Maud, the second Khalifa, wrote a very enlightening book about it known as The Start of Dissension in Islam, Islamic Ikhtilafat Ka Agaz in Urdu. So that is published. It's in English, translated. It's a very good, yeah, The Outset of Dissension in Islam. That was the title. So this is also a very necessary book, part of history, you could say, that we need to know. Otherwise, unfortunately, people start blaming one companion or another, or they start making certain suggestions about how some certain companions were not at a very high level of piety. So Hazrat Muslim Maud, he He went into all of the narrations, and he concluded that this was primarily, the factors around it were due to the existence of these hypocrites that were trying to destroy Khilafat. This was their purpose. And also there were many new Muslims that were coming into Islam at this time that didn't have the same level of piety as their predecessors did. And this combination eventually resulted in the dissolution of the Khilafat Rashida, right? And then an era of dynasties began. So yeah, if it's not there in that 3-year schedule, right? Yeah, well, the 3 volumes you have are very good. You know,
the first one I'm reading is what you were saying. The first book that they always look into the Quran, Hadices, and then there was a lot of other volumes of books, but some of them they were saying some of them are reliable, some of them are missing completely.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, they go real care to make sure that everything it's like it's supposed to be said.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of narrations that exist, sometimes contradictory narrations. So that's why the Prophet Islam, he gave us the golden rule that to resolve all of these conflicts, first we need to go to the Quran. Then we have the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Then we have the Ahadith, right? So if something doesn't go according to the Quran and there's no way to contextualize it, there's no way to understand it in a way that conforms with the Quran, then we don't accept that hadith, right? So it's a very simple, straightforward way, because the Quran states that it is a guardian over everything else, right? So when the Quran states that the companions were people that Allah had approved of, and they were righteous individuals, then we need to approach history with that understanding, right? So this is what Hazrat Muslim did, and this is one of the very big services that the Prophet Muhammad gave to the Muslims, that he established them on these very fundamental principles to understand history and other things as well, right? But in any case, I can give you a copy of that book or the PDF. You can read it, when you finish that book, maybe. Yeah, you got a lot.
All right. Quran in the morning and the other one read at
night. Good. So the final segment here is words of the promised Messiah. Okay. So the promised Messiah ﷺ has written a lot about the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So this is in Spanish. I'll read it in Spanish. Dice: Siempre me causa admiración el rango tan exaltado que posee este profeta árabe, cuyo nombre es Muhammad, que miles de bendiciones sean sobre él. No es posible concebir la magnitud de su rango, ni pueden abarcarse sus sublimes cualidades. Mas, por desgracia, aún no se ha reconocido debidamente su categoría. Fue este hombre valeroso el que restituyó al mundo la unidad de Dios, que había desaparecido de su faz, quien amó a Dios intensamente y quien se desvivió en su piedad hacia la humanidad. Por ello, Dios, que conocía las intimidades de su corazón, le otorgó superioridad sobre todos los profetas y todas las gentes del pasado y del futuro, y hizo realidad sus deseos en el curso de su vida. So here, again, why the Prophet ﷺ has such an elevated rank, right, is because of his qualities, right? His sublime qualities, which were beyond that of other prophets even, not to mention, common people. And his actions. He's the one that reestablished the unity of Allah on earth. Even today, all these other religions that say that they believe in one God, this is because really of Islam's emphasis on this point and the power of this point, that even now they have retracted from some of their previous positions, and now they state that there's only one God, right? And his devotion to Allah, his devotion to him was more than any other person, right? So this is why he had such incredible success during his life as well. No other prophet had success like the Holy Prophet ﷺ did, right? The closest one perhaps we can see is Prophet Musa, Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Very great prophet, law bearer, you know, very close to Allah. But even he did not live to enter into Canaan. He died before that. But the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he lived to enter into Mecca, right? And he saw the conversion of all of those people to Islam, and he lived to see all of Arabia really convert to Islam and establish an entire Islamic society from top to bottom, right? From the reformation of the common people all the way to the implementation of government and legislature, right? So this is something that Allah permitted him to see, whereas he didn't.
You know how many people were actually converted to Muslims?
If I'm not mistaken, the number was something like 300,000 at that time.
And that was a lot.
That was the entire peninsula, really. Right? It was the entire area. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
More or less. I mean, of course, there were other nations on the borders. Arabia didn't have a proper border, you could say, either, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, by and large, everyone in the area had become Muslim, right?
So you got to see that.
Yeah. He did Hajj in his last year. There were, I think, close to 100,000 people there,
Jesus.
right? Oh, yeah. Jesus had like 12 apostles. And of those 12, even one of them abandoned him, you know, betrayed him.
And his ministry was 3 years. And Moses was 40 because of when they were in the wilderness for 40, if it was 40. And the prophet, which was 20 years.
Yeah, so apparently according to the Bible, is 3 years. Right? According to us, he lived many, many years and he traveled widely. And,
yeah, but I'm saying that his ministry was 3 years. But then he continued ministry.
Then he continued. His ministry in Jerusalem, you could say, right? In that area was for about 3 years, according to the Bible. Right? But yes, I mean, the success that the Holy Prophet ﷺ had and the conditions despite which he had success, starting completely alone, bringing a message that was completely different to what his nation professed. Unity of God versus total idolatry, you know, completely at odds with one another. And establishing from top to bottom an Islamic society, right? No other prophet has been able to do this. And this was due to his personal qualities, right? And due to his relationship with Allah. So all of these things demonstrate to us that he was the chief of the prophets, right? Everyone else, every other prophet before him was, of course, a prophet. But we can state that they were his reflections in certain ways, right? They were virtual. He is the real image, right, of what a prophet is.
Is there a reason why the prophet did not name a successor?
It was unnecessary.
It wasn't.
The Prophet ﷺ had, on the matter of Khilafah, as a Muslim Maud stated, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ certainly made indications that the successor after him should be Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. There were indications because he said, now close all the doors to the mosque, but leave the door of Abu Bakr open. He assigned Hazrat Abu Bakr the duty to lead the prayers in the mosque while he was sick in his last days, right? So there were these indications, you know, but he never openly stated that he should be my successor. He had complete faith in Allah that as Allah raises prophets, in the same way he will raise a successor, right, after me, right?
He was saying Allah, that will be Allah take care of.
Yeah, Allah will take care of that, right? So it's not necessary for a prophet to designate a Khalifa after him. It's not necessary. If he desires to do it, if Allah tells him that such and such person will be the successor after you, then yes, it can happen that way, right? But by and large, if the community is a community that is a reformed community, right, and there aren't dangers associated with not specifying a successor, then the prophet or the successor himself will not designate anyone after him, right?
But the turmoil that took place after that. That's the problem.
The turmoil wasn't about the successor, right? About Hazrat Ali, about Hazrat Abu Bakr, yes, initially the companions, they had different opinions as to who should be the successor. But they all, very quickly, they all accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq as the first successor, legitimate successor after the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And up to Hazrat Ali, there was no other opinion on this either, you could say. They all accepted the legitimacy of the successorship.
Even Ali did?
Yes. The Shias don't believe
the
so.
rumors is that Ali wasn't there when that took place.
So Hazrat Ali, he was, you're right, Hazrat Ali initially, he had certain doubts about this, right? And that's why he delayed doing his bayah. But he did do it eventually after that. And there are other reasons that people have proposed that it's, some people stated it was because his wife was very sick. So he was really at home attending to her, and he wasn't frequenting the mosque. But I believe, I may be mistaken, but I think the promised Messiah ﷺ stated about this, that initially he was under this impression. He had doubts, and that's why he didn't do the bayah. But after that, he did, right? So everybody did, really.
He did it so everybody could be.
Yeah, everybody is, well, together. At that point, everyone was together. Yeah. He was more or less the outsider, right? So, but this was his sincerity. Yeah. There was something he didn't understand, right? And because of that, he didn't do the bayah. So he was a very sincere individual. But when he understood, when Allah made him understand this point, he came and he did it. Not because everyone else did it. If that was an issue for him, he would have done it on the first day, right? So the fact that he delayed it demonstrates to us that he was sincere, right? And it did not matter to him what everyone else was doing if he thought they were doing something wrong. But when he did do his bayah, that was because he truly, from his heart, believed that this is what Allah desires for us, and he is truly the successor, right? So the Shia sometimes state that, hey, he had personal reservations, but then just to maintain the unity of the community, he came and he did his bayah.
That's what I heard.
Right? But it doesn't make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense, right? Why wouldn't he do that on the first day then, right? Why did he wait such a long time to do it, right? So again, it also means that he knowingly did something that was wrong in his heart, right? For worldly purposes, right? And we cannot attribute that to any good Muslim, much less somebody like Hazrat Ali, right? So if we believe that he was a righteous individual and he was courageous and he was the lion of Allah, like even the Shia state, then would the lion do something like this, such a cowardly act? Right? Yeah, so it's contradictory. And Hazrat Ali himself, they state that he didn't approve of any of the Khulafa. He named his children after them. His children, Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, he named them after them, right? So nothing squares about the Shia position on Hazrat Ali, right?
Yeah, maybe the book I read was by Shia also. How to be.
Most likely, right? So it's always important, especially about these controversial issues. And there's many that exist amongst the Muslims, that it's always important to get the opinion first of the promised Messiah والسلام, and the Khulafa. I mean, that's why they were sent, specifically to resolve these differences of opinion. The promised Messiah والسلام, wrote an entire book about the differences amongst the Sunnis and the Shias. And it's called Sirrul Khilafa, right? Yeah, Sirrul Khilafa. It's also
written by the promised Messiah.
This is written by the promised Messiah. It's also translated into English now, right? It literally translates as the secret of successorship, Khilafa. So there he goes into the differences amongst the Sunnis and the Shias and the accusations of the Shias against the Sunnis. And he very clearly, from the Quran and the Sunnah and history even, demonstrates that the Shia position is false, right? The Khilafat was rightly given to Hazrat Abu Bakr, and then Umar, then Usman, then Ali, right? Yeah, he was the fourth one, right? So this idea that he was the Imam and he hid his intentions for all these years, and then eventually he came out and said that I am the person, it's not correct. But in any case, that's another book to read, right? Sirrul Khilafa. But Yeah, but the basic point is this, right? Allah states that He will establish Khilafah, right? And all of the points of Khilafah, all of the distinctions or characteristics of Khilafah were found in the life of Hazrat Abu Bakr. He established the Ummah. There was widespread revolt against Islam or the Islamic government during his life, and he put it down. He reestablished Islam on very firm principles, right? And this is exactly what a Khalifa is said to do in the Quran, right? So at that time, even Shias accept who is the one who saved Islam? Hazrat Abu Bakr. How did he do it if he was not a true believer? Right? Doesn't make sense. If he was false, then Allah would have destroyed him, right? And would have brought the correct person to lead the charge.
How long was he the
Very short. I think it was 2 to 4 years or something. Very short. But within those few years, this was natural death.
Okay.
Right. So after him, it was Hazrat Umar that was assassinated by this was by a slave that was working on behalf of another party, and then Hazrat Usman was murdered by the rebels against the Muslim empire at the time, and then Hazrat Ali was also murdered, right? So this was also a lack of understanding on part of the Muslims at the time that they allowed their Khulafa to be murdered. Where was the protection? Where was the importance given to them, right? If they had protected them and obeyed them, then Khilafat would have continued. But unfortunately, this situation at the time was such, and it was decreed. This was meant to happen as well in this way. So it's a very sad story, but there are lessons to be learned from it, right? But yeah, I encourage you to read. Well, these two books are, you could say, fundamental. Sirul Khilafah, the Promised Messiah, on the Sunni Shia split.
Send me that text. Exactly how to look it up.
Yeah, let me see if I can just send it to you real quick. Okay.